So imagine pouring your life into inventing tools that shape black hair culture around the world, and then waking up one day to distributors telling you your product isn't in demand anymore, while cheap knockoffs suddenly flood the shelves.
This is Lucky White, who owns Kazoui along with her husband.
We have been in business for over 30 years, and we are a black company selling to black beauty supplies and also to black hairstylists, and we make a quality product. Everyone look at our product as being the best in the industry. However, since the agents have been here, they are cutting us out, telling us that our product is not in demand any longer. The Korean connection. About 3 years ago, they started to blacklist our product. As they brought their own products in, they start to manufacture curling irons, and they duplicate everything that you manufacture. They would duplicate it, and then they start to slowly cut back on orders, and then they tell you that your product is not in demand. So they would make something that's very similar that looked like ours, and then they try and sell the consumer on this product.
That's not a movie plot. That's part of the real story of Jerry and Lucky White, the black husband and wife team behind Kizure Iron Works, one of the original black-owned manufacturers in our hair industry, and a company that has survived almost 5 decades of gatekeeping, copycats, and Korean-controlled distribution. In this episode of Black Hair, White Dollars, we are going to lift their names up and take a closer look into how Jerry and Lucky built Kazoui from the ground up in 1972, how they were squeezed by the same Korean-dominated beauty supply system we're talking about in this series, and what their journey teaches black entrepreneurs today about ownership, strategy, and survival in an industry that still wants our dollars more than it wants our power. Stay with me, because this is not just a history lesson. This is a blueprint and a warning at the same time. Now let's roll back to Los Angeles, 1972. The Afro is a political statement, black pride is loud, and a young married couple, Jerry and Lucky White, decide they're not just going to style black hair, they're going to manufacture the tools to do it. They launched Kizure Iron Works with a simple but powerful entry, the now classic Afro pick, made for our texture, our styles, and our image. Now from there, Kazoui grows into one of the first black-owned beauty suppliers in the country, opening the first place of business in Los Angeles, California. Their specialty? Custom curling irons, professional pressing combs, and heavy-duty thermal stoves for salon stylists.
Hi, I'm Liz Muller from Liz's Hair Design in Hollywood, Florida. In this clip, we're going to talk about Kazoui curling irons. Kazoui has been around for quite a while. They're Marcel irons that they have here. These are the Kazoui irons. This is a big, round-barreled Kazoui iron. They have flat irons, as you see. This is a 1-inch flat iron. This is the mini flat iron right here. And this is another small curling iron. This would be a Kazoui stove that they have. This is a double heated stove. Down here it keeps it warm, and in here you would heat your iron. Okay, so if you would use a curling iron, you put it up here to heat it up. This is actually a comb, a hot comb also by Kazoui. But you'd put your flat iron in there, and it would heat up, and when it's ready, you would test it on one of the towels here. But you can keep it warm at all time here as you're working. So it's great to have a double stove by Kazoui, and they last a very long time. The products are very durable. It's, really firm and good. And you'll find that you'll work really easily with these round barrels. You'll work really nicely with them. Thank you. This has been Lisbeth Muller.
Stylists then and now fell in love with the craftsmanship, the solid metal, balanced weight, and the smooth glide through textured hair. Now, over time, Kazoui becomes known in the industry as a platinum standard toolmaker with irons and combs that outlast the imitations. Now, while most of us were just walking into a beauty supply store grabbing a hot comb, we had no idea that a black couple in LA was behind some of the best tools in the market and that they were fighting like hell just to stay on those shelves. As black hair trends shifted from straight presses to jerry curls, from wraps to weaves, then back to naturals, Kizure didn't stay stuck in the 70s. According to coverage from the Los Angeles Sentinel, Kizure expanded from irons and stoves into full product lines like Thermal Control and Mega Shine. They also transitioned into products like shampoos and conditioners, styling gels, sheens, and finishing products, all designed to work with curls, weaves, silk presses, and natural hair, not as an afterthought, but as the default. Their daughter, Rainey White, eventually steps in as director of marketing sales and pushing Kazoui to new distribution and social media visibility, and also helping the brand reach a younger stylist and consumers. By 2015, Kazoui is being honored at the 10th annual Taste of Soul Festival in Los Angeles, celebrated for over 40 years in business and recognized as a black-owned manufacturer that helped build the modern black hair industry. So how do you go from being honored as pioneers to being told your own products aren't in demand anymore? Well, that's where the Korean beauty supply machine comes in. If you've been watching this series, you already know the Korean wig and hair trade organized very early, and yes, they secured government support and locked down both manufacturing and distribution, especially from the 1960s moving forward.
This is Chosun, one of the most respected newspapers in South Korea. And it's inside the archives of this newspaper that I discovered a document from 1965 in which the wig manufacturers in Korea convinced the Korean government to ban the export of raw hair, making it impossible for anyone to manufacture wigs from the highly desirable Korean hair population, except for the Korean manufacturers themselves. And 6 months after the Korean ban on the export of hair, the United States government banned the import of any wig that contained hair from China. This ban on Chinese wigs virtually locked in the wig business for these South Korean merchants. So it seems that what we're seeing today, the Korean domination of the black hair industry, had its start with the help of both the Korean and the United States government almost 40 years ago.
Now, filmmaker Aaron Rennan, in his documentary Black Hair, digs into how Korean distributors and merchants built a near monopoly on the black beauty supply distribution chain, making it extremely hard for black manufacturers and black-owned stores to get fair access to the products that we created and that we used. Lucky shared that when she tried to get Kizure tools carried by major Korean-owned distributors, she was pushed out. She was told that her styling tools were no longer in demand, even though stylists still loved them. This was the excuse that they used to justify replacing her products with cheaper knockoffs produced by Asian companies.
We have to stand up and fight. We are beautiful black people. If we have to wear our hair short, so be it. Let's wear it short, but let's get this under control where we control the industry and not let someone else come in and then set up and take all our revenue out of the community. And they got in, now they control it, and they are really, boasting about it, and they are talking about it, and then they are laughing at us all the way to the bank.
Now, this wasn't just about one brand. It reflected a wider pattern where a small number of Korean-controlled distributors chose who got access to the shelves and who didn't. Now let that sink in. A black woman who helped build the professional tool category is told that her products aren't wanted, so that imitations of her designs can take her place. That's economic erasure, folks. That's gatekeeping with a smile. And this is exactly what many Black entrepreneurs still describe today. They create something of high quality, they don't own the distribution, and suddenly the gatekeepers decide whose products get prime real estate in the beauty supply aisle. Now, despite all of that, Kizure is still here. Public records and listings show Kizure Iron Works operating in Gardenia, California, with a business address on Southwestern Avenue, phone contacts, and an active ordering info. Kizure tools and products still show up through professional and online beauty retailers that carry Kizure irons, thermal tools, and hand sanitizer. Social media posts promoting ordering directly via the website and the phone line. Kizure is clearly a shining example that they are long-standing, a legacy Black business that has survived multiple waves of industry change. Academic work on Black beauty culture has also cited Kizure as an example of a smaller African-American-owned manufacturer of curling irons and pressing combs based in the Los Angeles Carson area. Should be a reminder that while big brands get all the shine, there's a whole tier of Black-owned manufacturers holding it down in the background. So if Kizure could survive this long without being the darling of the Korean distribution network, what can the rest of us learn from Jerry and Lucky's playbook? The lessons and blueprint for Black entrepreneurs today, well, I'm going to pull out some specific practical lessons from the Kizure story for Black entrepreneurs, especially those in beauty, hair, and lifestyle. Own as much of the production as you can. Kizure didn't just private label someone else's tools. They manufactured professional curling irons, pressing combs, and stoves, literally making the hardware in-house and right here in the United States. Now, that meant control over quality and control over design innovations. It was a product that was actually hard to duplicate at the same standard. Now, what's the takeaway? Well, even if you can't own 100% of your supply chain, own some core pieces, whether that's your formula, your molds, your IP, your content, or your data. Don't depend on one gatekeeper. Lucky White's experience with distributors saying your products aren't in demand anymore shows what happens when one gate controls the whole market. Kizure has sold directly by phone, online, and they have built relationships with stylists, salons who request their tools. They used community events like the Taste of Soul to stay in front of Black consumers. So again, what is the takeaway for today? Consider using e-commerce and your own website, not just someone else's shelves. Build email lists, text lists, and social media communities that you own. Partner with independent Black-owned salons and beauty supply stores that are not controlled by the big distributors. And also, consider building an ecosystem, not just a product. So Jerry White has spoken in the press about continuing to support other Black-owned businesses and sharing knowledge as part of his mission. Now that's an ecosystem mindset. When you mentor, you strengthen the next wave. When you deliberately source from other Black businesses, you then create circulating dollars, not just a one-way spending. So what you're going to have to do is think beyond my brand to our ecosystem, collaborate with other Black entrepreneurs on group buying, joint marketing, and eventually Black-owned distribution networks. Consider using a story as a strategy. The reason we even know what happened to Lucky White with those distributors is because she told the story on camera in a documentary that called out the structural gatekeeping by name. That story educated consumers, exposed unfair practices, and became a part of the evidence we now use in conversations like this. As a Black entrepreneur, your story is more than marketing. It's a weapon against erasure. Document your experiences, unfair treatment, successes, roadblocks, and the wins. That record is going to help the next generation fight smarter and earlier. When we say Black hair, white dollars, this is exactly what we're talking about. Black genius, Black labor, Black creativity, meeting in a system where someone else controls the doors, the shelves, and the keys. Jerry and Lucky White built Kizure Iron Works in 1972 with an Afro pick and a dream, grew it into a respected manufacturer of irons, combs, products, and then had to watch as the gatekeepers tried to quietly push them out of their own lane. And yet still, they're here today, still making tools, still a reference point in books and articles, and community events. They are still a living example that Black-owned manufacturing is possible, even in a market that's heavily stacked against us. As you watch this episode, I want you to sit with a few questions. Have you ever noticed which brands disappear from your local beauty supply and which ones magically multiply overnight? Have you ever seen Kazoui tools in your stores, or are they missing while cheap knockoffs line the walls? Going forward, how can we intentionally support Black-owned manufacturers like Kazoui, not just Black-owned retailers? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about who does our hair, it's about who owns the tools, who owns the shelves, and who owns the story.